Should I buy iPhone 8 or iPhone 10? Coming up right now, let's go. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. And should you buy the iPhone 8 or the iPhone 10? Now, I titled it Should I Buy because that's more than likely how you're going to ask this question in the search query. So I just titled it Should I Buy? Don't get it confused. I'm not saying should I, the video creator, buy these. Obviously, they're on the table here. I already bought them, but I want to begin with the first section, which is body, build, and design. I do this in most of my comparisons. On the iPhone 8, I'm not going to talk too long about it. Glass back, it is up to 148 grams from 143 grams on the iPhone 7. You do have wireless charging supported now. They do remove the FCC branding stuff under the iPhone logo that really doesn't, make it look any cleaner. So I think this looks cleaner than the previous version because it just says iPhone on there now. You do have the 4.7-inch display on the front with the same bezels as before, second gen Touch ID, and space gray around the edges. A slight camera hump there, nothing too protruding, and no headphone jack here. So overall, the body, the build, and design very similar to what we're used to, but it is much lighter and actually I would say a little more comfortable to use than the iPhone 10 just because of its weight savings. Now on the iPhone 10, you are looking at stainless steel around the edges of this device, which definitely give it a more hefty feel in the hand. And at the end of the day, it does feel like it costs more money than the iPhone 8, but it's not a more comfortable phone to use day to day just because it's a little bit heavier. Add a case on there, you're going up even more in weight. It's around 174 grams or so on the iPhone 10. 5.8-inch OLED on the front of the panel. We know what this is by now. Well tuned. It's, pretty sharp, 458 pixels per inch. Notch up at the top. And you do have a pretty protruding dual camera lens, one of the thickest we've seen from Apple, but it definitely does feel industrial. Now, the back is a little shinier than the silver you can get on the iPhone 8, so keep that in mind. This is really just a shiny phone right here, but it's kind of, the same size footprint as the iPhone 8 when it comes to its design, body, and build. But I do think you got a more comfortable phone just because of the weight savings with the iPhone 8, but you might have a better looking phone on the iPhone 10 when it comes to just pure, aesthetics and design. So let's get on to the next section. All right, so I do want to discuss display tech between both of these. So, I'm not going to go on too long about this though. Retina display here, we know what this is. 326 pixels per inch here on the iPhone 8. It does have the ability to give you True Tone now, and it is of the P3 color gamut with night shifts. So it's still a solid display here. It's very well tuned and very accurate. So you will like the iPhone 8's display, but it's not going to blow you away with zingy colors or anything that's found on OLED panels. Now on the iPhone 10, you're getting yourself a 5.8-inch OLED screen, which to me feels more tall than wide. So what that means is that it's kind of a narrow display. So watching videos and stuff doesn't feel like a flat screen in your hand. It feels more like a letterboxed screen. So when you're watching a widescreen video and you have the letterboxing on top, that's kind of more what this screen feels like. So keep that in mind. It's more long and tall and narrow than it is wide. It's not that full 16:9 aspect, but it is very sharp and it does have really well balanced colors here. And you definitely get the deep blacks here for the iPhone 10, which you don't get on pretty much any other iPhone. True Tone makes its way here and it is tuned for P3 color gamut. So it's a fantastic display. Some are saying it's the best display ever. To me, the Note 8 is the best display I've seen, but that's just a personal opinion. You might differ. Overall though here, display here, good on the iPhone 8, amazing on the iPhone 10. Get the iPhone 10 if you want the best display Apple can offer to you right now on a mobile device. Now, discussing storage, I actually only have the 64 gig iPhone 8 here. I didn't see a need to get the 256 gig because I was going with the 256 gig for this guy. But basically, you can get this one in 64 gig as well on the iPhone 10. I think that's not really the good deal because you're already paying like $1,000. Why not just go all out and get the 256 gig? The 64 gig, that's a lot of money, I think, for a phone with just 64 gigs. So if you're going to get an iPhone 10, you might as well just pay an extra 150 and get the 256 gig. Now, in terms of storage though, the 256 gig should last most longer, but if you don't use a lot of storage, then 64 will work for either. It's basically the same, H.265 storage on both, so speed with transfer on the storage is going to be similar between both. So let's talk a little bit about software here between both devices. Now, on the iPhone 8, you are looking at a device that's going to give you iOS 11 in the traditional sense, meaning the way it was before we even seen the iPhone 10. You're going to pull up for Control Center here. A lot of people do like this new Control Center. It's definitely the buggiest iOS I've ever experienced, but it's still smooth. It's not like, you know, horrible. You can still use it day to day and it's going to be a pretty good experience, and it's getting better. They're going to bring the Apple Cache in 11.2. We should be seeing next week after the holidays here. And yeah, overall, it's pretty much iOS as we've known it today, iOS 11. Now, it changes up a lot here for the iPhone 10 in that you do have now a Siri button over here on the right side, whereas you had a Siri button here at the bottom of the iPhone 8. You can bring up Control Center from the top now. You can't see certain things up there in that right notch next to the notch. You can't see certain things, like if you have Bluetooth enabled and Wi-Fi enabled, you're gonna have to pull it down to see that both are on because there's just not room there, and that's kind of annoying if you ask me. Over here, you can pull down for your notifications or just from the middle. Now, pulling down and to the right will give you access to your multitasking, but it's definitely an extra step than before. So now when you pull up, it won't like close. If you go like that, it just closes out and goes back home. Another thing that's different is to access reachability, you have to pull down from the bottom just slightly on the iPhone 10. Sometimes it doesn't even work like right there. So I'm gonna just show it in an application here. It's like that on the iPhone 10, then it'll work here on the home screen. Sometimes it's just a little bit spotty, and you see how it was just missing right there. Now it's just really reliable here on the iPhone 8, where you just double tap to go into reachability so you can reach your applications and such. So yeah, you know, it's not as functional here, I think, on the iPhone 10. It doesn't work any faster. Yeah, it's the future of the iPhone, but these gestures here sometimes are just more annoying than they are functional. So right now, I think some software updates can improve the way the iPhone 10 does use iOS, but as it stands right now, it's definitely a learning curve here. And to turn off the power on iPhone 10, you have to hit 2 buttons instead of 1 here. So keep that in mind. Software very different in the way that you're going to experience it, but at its core, you still can't move icons around where you want it on either iPhone. Still can't do certain things like you can do on Android. Like you don't have a back button still, so you still have to rely on developers and the way Apple wants you to use the backup in the left-hand corner. So there are some quirks with both softwares, but overall, I think the iPhone 8 is the more easy to use software between both of these, and the one most people probably feel more comfortable on. So discussing performance, they're actually about the same when it comes to day-to-day use. I haven't seen any difference. Both of them have crazy Geekbench scores like MacBook level, and 2 gigs of RAM here, 3 gigs of RAM. But remember, lower resolution screens, so it's not really going to be that much slower at all than iPhone 10. In terms of speed and performance, they're about the same. I will do a proper speed test between both of these soon on the channel, so you might want to be subscribed for that. But as it stands, if you buy either one of these are both 2 of the fastest phones money can buy right now. But the way iOS operates doesn't make them feel the fastest. Their animations are still not as quick as Android's. The way you go into your app drawer is still not as quick. The horizontal view here, I would really like to see a vertical view on iOS. I think it's needed. It's a little bit slower to find your apps this way. You got to go all the way over where you can kind of see them really easily on a vertical view. But anyway, that is the difference there in performance. Not much at all, to be honest. So an area where both of these differ quite a lot is the camera, and not due to the way the camera sensor works. They got about the same camera sensor, at least on the single lens. Anyway, their software is very similar, but with the iPhone 8, you don't get portrait mode on the front or the rear. So if you're looking for the better camera, you got to choose the iPhone 10 of these two, just because it gives you portrait mode on the front and the rear with 5 different modes in that portrait mode. I mean, it's really compelling if you think about it in terms of the differences in their camera. Now, in terms of the video recording, both of them can do 4K 60, and you really only use one lens in video recording. So there's no real win here between either when it comes to video recording. It's about the same. Both have 7 megapixel front cameras. Again, on the front, you don't have dual cameras. So the only real advantage to the front camera of the iPhone 10 is its portrait mode, but that can be a huge advantage depending how many portraits you like to take. Now, in terms of the way they actually look, they're about the same distance from your face, so I don't see much difference at all. I think the iPhone 8 is going to be a camera, just a basic camera with like really good optics and good video with no extra stuff. You just want a really solid point and shoot camera. The iPhone 8 is going to be better. I think the iPhone 10 requires a little bit more, you got to just know how to use it a little bit more because of the portrait modes. But if you don't use the portrait modes on the iPhone 10, it's basically a basic camera too, but why not utilize what you're paying for here with the iPhone 10? So at the end of the day, just due to hardware alone, the iPhone 10 gets a win, but you gotta really think about this question here. Ask yourself, am I really gonna use portrait mode? Like seriously, do I really want that blur in the background? I just wanna take pictures. If your answer is I just wanna take pictures, the iPhone 8 will be better here for camera. If you want the portrait modes, if you want that background blur, you gotta choose the iPhone 10 here. So let's discuss battery life on both these devices. One area people seem to really care a lot about in their smartphone. And I'm happy to report I'm actually quite impressed with the battery life I get from the iPhone 8. You know, never before have I seen the 4.7-inch iPhone do this well in battery life. It has really solid battery life on the iPhone 8, but the iPhone 10 is a little bit better in the battery department. Now, the iPhone 8 is going to give me around 5 to 5.5 hours on screen time with a pretty much 12 to 15 hour day. On the iPhone 10, I'm getting about 6 to 7. So the iPhone 8 Plus giving me 8 or 9. So the 8 Plus is still the king here with battery life. And in terms of standby, both are excellent, no issues there. The iPhone 10 will eke out an hour or two more on battery life than the iPhone 8, but it's not horrible on the iPhone 8. It's actually improved over the iPhone 7, 6S, and 6. So both of these are good on battery life. Neither one of them are amazing on battery life, but they're both amazing on standby time. So we got to discuss audio quality. So this one is pretty similar. They both have the dual speakers. So if we go into both devices, I think the iPhone 10 sounded a little bit louder in my testing, but I do want to give a shout out to this. Let's see. Let me go to my channel here and play one of my latest videos, and we're going to see the differences here in the audio. So there's Nick Ackerman channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. We post videos pretty much daily. Let's go to the LG G6 6 months later. So you can see plenty loud there on the left. Let's try the right now. Yeah, it's definitely slightly louder. Yeah, it's definitely slightly louder on the iPhone 10. So if you want a better audio experience through the speakers, get the iPhone 10, but it's only slight. They both have the dual speakers, one in the earpiece, one at the bottom. Both are pretty fantastic though, and I do appreciate that, but neither one of these give you a headphone jack on either device, and that is really a bummer for pretty much any new iOS device right now, sans the iPad and the MacBook Pro. But at the end of the day, their audio through the speakers is pretty great. So let's discuss call quality here. So I do actually like the iPhone 8 a little bit more for call quality just because of the bezels. I'm less likely to tap something with my face on the screen. Although I didn't have that issue too much on the iPhone 8, I just feel like the bezels give my ear a nice place to not hit the screen, whereas up here you might, accidentally toggle something. But while the iPhone 8 might feel better on the hardware, I found the iPhone 10 to be slightly better when it comes through the earpiece. And because you do have a louder speaker, it's going to be a better speakerphone experience. So the signal strength itself, though, it's about the same on both. I didn't have any drop calls when using them. I would still choose the iPhone 10 if I still wanted a technically better experience talking, but I like the smaller size and I like the bezels for actually doing phone calls on the iPhone 8. So they're really a wash here when it comes to call quality. So let's talk about some miscellaneous stuff between both of these. If you decide to buy both of these, you do get 3D touch on both, which feels about the same on both. Other things I want to mention is both of these phones now have a little vibration when you do take a picture. They just kind of slightly vibrate, that haptic engine. You don't get that in the older iPhones. Both of them are IP67 and both of them do support Apple Pay. Now, both of them do support wireless charging as we mentioned earlier, but neither of them are fast wireless charging. However, that should be updated soon with 11.2, and you do have to buy a separate accessory to get faster charging, which is kind of greedy if you ask me. And another thing to mention is that both of them will give you 1080p 240 FPS slow motion video and H.265 file transfer and format. So that's pretty good stuff for video and content creators. Now I want to talk about price and colors. So this is an area where I think the iPhone 10 kind of let us down. Only 2 colors. Really, Apple, we got like a $1,000 phone here and we only got 2 color options. Over here on the iPhone 8, you get 3 color options, which is still kind of weak, I think, for what they charge for these phones. We should have at least 4 to 5 color options like they did with the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus. But hey, glass is probably a little bit harder to make different colors of, or a little bit more pricey to create those. So maybe that's why they were cutting corners there. But you only can get a space gray iPhone 10 or a silver one. I've basically been seeing the silver ones everywhere. And the iPhone 8 you can get in blush gold, space gray, or silver. I personally think the space gray is the best looking color. That's why I picked it up, but you might differ there. And really, you got more color options when it comes to iPhone 8. Now, in terms of their price between both of these, $699 to start here for iPhone 8, which is actually up over the starting price of the iPhone 7. So don't just think the iPhone 10 is up. The iPhone 8 is up over prior models as well. The iPhone 10 obviously starts at $999. Now, do you really get $280 better of a phone here in the iPhone 10? And to me, I don't think so. I think you get about $100 to $150 better phone, but there's kind of like that Apple tax for getting the best Apple has to offer right now. Why I say it's not $100 to $150 better than the iPhone 10 is because it has some quirks. You know, it's like a beta product. The gestures aren't all there yet. The iPhone 8 is fast, fluid, refined, and works the way we want it to work while giving us what we like to see every year: camera improvements, battery improvements, as well as speed improvements. Now, we didn't see a screen improvement, but that's where you have to go to the iPhone 10. Now, the iPhone 10 definitely gives us a radical redesign, a shift from what we're used to, and, you know, a questionable design, whether you like it or not. To me, it is a really nice design. It's definitely premium feeling, definitely feels like what you paid for it. But at the end of the day, I think value for money wise, the iPhone 8 still stands as a better value here, but you might regret it as going forward, they might just, you know, abolish this line of phone, which is highly likely that you will not see this design again, meaning when you go to sell this phone, it will be worth less money. So that's why I still recommend the iPhone 10 is the better choice between both of these. Anyway, if you found this video helpful, enjoyable, do me a favor, click the like button for me. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, drop it down below. We have a community of people that will help you out. I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. Visit www.nickackermanchannel.com to reach out to me there as well. I will catch you all in the next one. Be sure to be well and peace.